Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to join Thomas and me for our session on enabling and configuring Microsoft Teams for your users, for your tenant, for your teams, etc. We have a very packed agenda of things to run through today, so we're going to go relatively quick. Of course, the deck and etc. will be posted for review later, and we'll stick around just a little bit, I think, at the end for questions, but I don't think we'll have time to get to questions during the session. If we do, that'd be great. Okay. So let's get going. Some key learnings we want people to take home from today. Start using Teams now. It's actually really easy to get started. There's enough controls to ring fence. If you only want to do a pilot or just a part of your company use it, a part of your organization use it, you're ready to get started right away. In terms of the prereqs, the best Teams experience comes with Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, including OneDrive for Business. We'll talk a little bit later about the licensing prereqs and some of the affordances and trade-offs when some of those are not enabled or are on premises. The settings that we're going to talk about can be used to tailor the Teams experience for your business requirements, the culture, security concerns, patterns and practices within your company about how you manage collaboration. Plenty of opportunities within Teams configuration, especially with some of the stuff we announced this week in the new converged portal with Skype for Business. And then we'll talk about network optimization and some of the new developments we've done in the network planner. So especially as you're rolling out VoIP, audio and video, online meetings, screen sharing within your organization's network, you're able to do that with high confidence. So actually, it's a pretty short session because in order to enable Teams, no further action is required. It's already there. It's on by default in your tenant. So we're done, I think? No, actually, as it turns out, there's a little bit of fine print, and we're going to go through that for the next 43 minutes and 6 seconds. Infrastructure dependencies, licensing, how to configure Teams itself, and then configuring Teams, the product, and configuring Teams within Teams, a little confusing. The client story, how the client gets deployed, downloaded, et cetera, and then network planning. Just to get started, we'll tell you a little about who we are. So my name's Dan. I have lived in a few of those cities and spent a lot of time in some of the others and hope to go there at some point. Those are my kids in the middle. They ride sheep. It's a thing at the state fair, and my son was not quite old enough, but I never thought I would fudge his age for a sporting event, let alone this, but he was 4 for a day, which is great. And he won first place, so that's great. I've been at Microsoft longer than I actually imagined I ever would. Worked in Windows and Azure and Windows Phone and Hotmail and Communicator, Link, Skype for Business, and now Teams. Of course, in the Teams product group, there's my email and my Twitter handle. And Thomas, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Dan. So my name is Thomas Binder. I'm based in Austria and Vienna. I have never lived anywhere else, though I spend a lot of time here in the States due to my work. You can see here my daughter, she's 3 years old. That's the first time she's playing the Xbox, very important and proud moment in my life. I've been in Microsoft since 10 years already. I started on OCS, which became Link, which became Skype for Business. I'm still part of the Skype for Business product group, and I work on IT Pro readiness. So for me, it's important, and whenever we ship new features in Skype for Business and also in Teams, that we have readiness for the IT pros so that they know what are these features, how can they use them, how they can configure them, and how can they monitor these features. But let's now jump into the infrastructure requirements. And the way you want to think about Office 365 and Teams is that we believe that Office 365 gives you all the tools that you need for a modern workplace, that your information workers need. And Teams is the single hub that the information worker would use for all teamwork-related activities. So Teams is really a place where they go and they use all this underlying technology without the need of really exposing them to. They don't need to know that there's a SharePoint or OneDrive. They just use Teams, and it does it for them. And I want to start here with a high-level view of the architecture. And I know this is a level 200 session, so this is a little bit overwhelming and might be a little bit confusing. But we will just look at very specific parts here. So at the top, you can see Teams, where it says Teams. These are actually the clients. So we have web clients, we have desktop clients, we have mobile clients, iOS, Windows Phone, Android. So the block at the top is just the different clients that we have. Then on the bottom, these are all the different services that we run in Office 365 that help us to give you a great experience on Teams. And we're going to highlight now a few of these services. If you want to get a deep dive on the architecture, there was yesterday a session get an overview of Microsoft Teams architecture, and you can always go and get a recording for that, so to learn about more of these boxes here. But we want just to look now at a few of those. First one is Azure Active Directory. That's where we have the identity, where it's the username and the password for all the users so that they can sign in. And for a good Teams experience, obviously we want you that you use your on-prem Active Directory, if you have one, and sync that with AAD so that the user have a single sign-on experience, that they just use the same username and password, and that they can leverage these tools the same as they can use all the other tools. Optionally, you can enable them then for modern authentication. Teams supports all of that if you need. The next piece is Exchange. So we use Exchange Online, and for an optimal user experience, you will have to use Exchange Online. Exchange is used, there's a group mailbox in the calendar every time we create a team. Meetings that people create in Teams, they are pushed to the Exchange calendar. And the Exchange calendar is then synced to Teams as well, so that you have always the same calendar in both, on both sides. And here are a few limits that if you're using Exchange on premises, we don't get all of these features. So the first one is the Teams client will not allow you to create any meetings or view your meetings because the calendar integration doesn't work. That's unless if you have Exchange 2016 CU3, then it will work. We are working to extended support for more versions, but if you're currently on an older version than on Exchange, on-prem, then users will just not get that feature. Users will not be able to modify their profile pictures. They will not be able to modify the connectors. That's some of the extensibility that we have in Teams to provide more functionality. And there's limitations in compliance archiving of private chats. So again, Exchange on premises, it doesn't stop you from using Teams. Users will just not get the full user experience.
If I could interrupt just briefly, the compliance and archiving requirement or constraint is a point-in-time constraint, something we're working to address.
Thanks. The SharePoint Online, again, we use SharePoint Online for some of the features. Every time a user uploads a file to a channel, in the background we put it into SharePoint Online. So if you don't have SharePoint Online, then we can't share these files. So with SharePoint on-prem, it's not possible to share files. In addition, we use OneDrive for Business. Every time I send a file, I don't share it in a channel, but I send it to someone specifically as part of a one-to-one chat. For example, I have a chat with Dan, we discuss stuff, I need to upload my deck, I put it into the chat. It will be uploaded to OneDrive for Business on the sender side. So it would end in my OneDrive, permissions are automatically set so that he can access it. If I don't have SharePoint Online, if I don't have the license, if I don't have OneDrive for Business enabled, then I can't do that. So bringing all of that together, for an optimal user experience, you have your identities in Azure Active Directory, you have your mailboxes homed in Exchange Online, all your users are assigned with licenses with SharePoint, are enabled, and they are enabled for OneDrive for Business. Speaking of licenses, so what do you need to do in order to be able to use Teams from a licensing perspective? So for the commercial suites and education, Teams is included in all of these packages. So Office 365 Business Essential, Premium, E1, E3, E5. If you still have an E4 license that we don't sell anymore, but you might have bought it in the past, you will get Teams. For education, same. Education, Education Plus, E3, E5. Government, we don't have at the moment. We're working hard on that. There are a lot of certification processes that we need to go through. So next year, early next year, hopefully, you should expect that we can do that as well.
Could add one more thing. We're also available in the kiosk SKU, the K1 SKU.
Fantastic. Yeah. We should have added that to the slide.
Yes.
Compliance is one of the major advantages that Teams has over competitive products. So as you know, hopefully, Office 365 has a lot of compliance features. So we can archive the content, we can do e-discovery, we can do legal hold. If you don't know what all of these words mean, then probably you don't need it, and that's okay. So I won't go into detail. If you want to learn more about it, there's a session on Friday, Learn About Enterprise Security and Compliance with Microsoft Teams, where they will go in all of these details. Just be aware that there are licensing requirements. Depending on what licensing you have, you might not be able to use all of the compliance features that we have. Then we have Active Directory Premium, that you don't need that for Teams, but you need it for some of the features that Teams build on. And we wouldn't describe that as core features, but some of the additional capabilities to manage that, and then we'll go into a few slides in more detail what these are and why you want to use them. But when he talks about conditional access and mobile application management, allow and deny list for guest access or group exploration, just realize you will need to have the AAD premium subscription for that. And then finally, the last type of license that can affect your experience in Microsoft Teams is around audio conferencing. We announced audio conferencing on Monday. It's currently in preview, so you can get it today in preview. And audio conferencing means that you have one of your meetings in Teams, and you don't have just a regular IP audio and video and desktop sharing, but you also allow users to dial a phone number from their phone to be connected to the meeting. And the other way around, you can dial out from a meeting to a phone number. This is basically the same that we're doing in Skype for Business. So it is also the same configuration. It has the same dependencies. So you will have to have, at the moment, we'll change that in the future, but at the moment you will have to have a Skype for Business Plan 2 license. You will need to have the license for dial-in. That's an Office 365 E5 subscription or an add-on to the other subscriptions. And then you will do the configuration the same as you would do it for Skype for Business. As a matter of fact, if you have configured that today for Skype for Business, you get it in Teams automatically, so it will show up in Teams. There are additional requirements for dial-out, where you dial out to a phone number, or where users can use a toll-free number to dial in. You will have to pay based on the usage, so you need to set something up that's called communication credit, which is pay-per usage. And the last thing that you want to consider when it comes to audio conferencing is what countries is it available in. We have about over 90 countries at the moment, but here's the list, and obviously you want to check if the countries that are relevant to you, if they're included in the list. As part of the session, we will not go into the setup of audio conferencing because it's a couple of steps. It's not super difficult, but it would just not allow us to fit all of the content that we wanted to into that session. But again, we have so many sessions here at this event. There's a session, Understand Meetings in Microsoft Teams. That's tomorrow, I believe. So you can go there and learn about the details on how to configure audio conferencing and what it can do for you. And now Dan will tell you how to configure Microsoft Teams.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. So we're going to start by talking about going to the Office 365 admin portal. That's just portaloffice.com, click on the admin tile. All of the Teams-specific settings are in the admin center. They are configured either at the tenant level or at a user type level. User type is like a business user or an education, faculty, education staff, or guest user. Teams is on by default. We are rolling out with the new admin center for Skype for Business and Teams together. Over time, we will have per user policies, so you can create a policy group and assign a set of users to that policy. At this point in time, Teams is a little broader brush than that. There are other settings that impact the behavior of Teams, Office 365 groups, Azure AD, SharePoint, Skype for Business. Some of those we'll get into here, and then the rest you can certainly find online. So let's go into the admin portal and just see where this is. So you go to Services and Add-ins, you go to Settings, Services and Add-ins, you click on Teams, Microsoft Teams. You can see actually right at the top, in the middle there, it says Enable Teams for all users of this type. That's kind of like the master switch. At some point, that will go away. Licensing, license assignment, and the license plan assignment for Teams is our preferred way and really the official recommended way to decide whether or not somebody has access to a particular product in O365 or not. This is a convenience that we provide. We had it during our preview. We turned it on by default. As we rolled out to education, we had certain things on and off by default. Over time, and we'll announce this through the admin notifications, of course, but over time that switch will in fact go away. So just going in here a little bit, there are some general tenant level settings where you can choose whether or not the org chart appears in the profile, whether Skype for Business is being used for people who don't have Microsoft Teams, if you're chatting with somebody and you want to do force the interrupt to happen there. And then we have this help agent called T-Bot, available in French, German, Spanish, and English, that you can turn on or off in your tenant. We like to keep that on, certainly recommend it actually to keep all these settings on in this way. All right, so you can see here when the org chart setting is enabled, you can see it's actually a fake org chart, but you can see what would show up in Teams, and of course you have to have an org chart populated within your tenant for this. And when you have the T-Bot enabled, this is what the T-Bot chat looks like. T-Bot will send you a few introductory messages, and then at any point in time, you can chat with T-Bot. Just go to the gear icon, or go to your profile, and go to help, and you can, or the settings icon, and you can just chat with T-Bot. You can search articles, that kind of thing. All right, so let's talk about email integration. One of the coolest features we added actually several months ago was the ability to send an email into a channel in Teams. You can get an email address for a channel, and we provide the ability to turn that on or off. You can see here, this is how you actually surface that in the product UI. There are also some advanced settings that let you control whether or not, who can send email to that channel. Is it only the people in that channel, for example, who are people on that team who are allowed to send email to it? We also have settings governing apps. This is actually relatively new to have the list of all the apps that are available and be able to turn those on or off. This is just scoped for Teams, so turning on or off a specific app in Teams doesn't impact what goes on in Outlook, for example, if it's a connector, for example. Turning on or off apps, of course, causes them to appear or disappear from this gallery screen, and actually there's a newer version of this coming out in a few weeks, a few months, that will have similar behavior, and again, that setting will control that. So the bottom half of the admin portal is more about user-specific settings, and there's a drop-down for the different types of users that you could have available. As I said earlier, business, education, guest, etc. If you only have one type, you won't see the drop-down, or it won't drop down. Within that group, within that set of settings, there's a few things you can control. One of them is cloud storage. So this is our integration we did with Box and Dropbox and so on, where you can add those capabilities into our Files tab above basically the rest of the files listed there. It's actually really beneficial for organizations that are using those storage providers already, and it may be something you want to turn off because you don't want everybody to necessarily have access to that, or it's just not something you're using. Within the Teams and Channels section, actually this mostly links out. Microsoft Teams has a team concept inside of it. That team is equivalent to an Office 365 group. So the settings on who can configure a group, who can create a group, the naming policies on groups, all the general settings around groups are managed through the O365 Groups admin UI. And then you can also do a lot of the group functions through actually Azure AD's admin console and through PowerShell. So this is, I think we're going to the groups console here. Oh, sorry, it's too quick. Going to the groups console here, you can see a list of all the groups that are in the tenant, and then including regular Office 365 groups as well as distribution lists, and you can go and configure those. Also under Teams and Channels, we have the ability to, or within groups, you have the ability to control who can create a group, and so there's actually a security group you create, and you put people on that if you want them to create a group. At Microsoft, we put everybody as a full-time employee is in that group, and so anybody can create a group or a team. And other companies, that's restricted to a help desk function or a central IT function. And then there's a call out here as well that anybody on the team can create channels. Channels are these topical things within a team. When we get into the team settings, you'll see some of the configurations on what people can and cannot do within a team and what the team owner can control on that. In terms of calling in meetings, so we have a number of settings around whether or not you want to allow users to schedule, users of this type, to schedule private meetings, to have ad hoc meetings in a channel, to have video in their meetings. Maybe it's just not appropriate for the network or appropriate for the organization to do that, to have screen sharing in the meeting, and also to have private calling. That's just bi-directional VoIP calling between a couple people. You also notice if you have guests in your tenant and you choose the guest user type, these settings are a little different for guests. In fact, the create meetings, schedule meetings one is actually locked off for guests. Guests don't have a proper mailbox and calendar when they're on a team, so they don't have the ability to create meetings within the channel. Same UI, just it's locked off in that case. Next set of user type settings are related to messaging and some of the fun controls in the product. So you can control, for example, whether or not Giphy, the animated GIFs, show up, and also what the content rating is for Giphy. This is the maximum, or right word, this is the most strict setting. If you choose it, every team has to be at that setting or more strict. So I guess it's the least strict setting for the tenant. So you may choose moderate here, but as a team owner later on, I may choose to make my team be strict or even turn off Giphies for my team because that's just not something that I want. And there's a few other settings here around stickers and things like that. And then there's also some interesting settings around whether or not users can edit their messages and delete their messages. This is just an example of what the stickers look like. And I can, oops, sorry, jumped too fast. So in terms of editing and deleting messages, we added a feature specifically for our education SKU, then we rolled it out to all the others, where the team owner has the ability to delete messages in the team if they want to. You can imagine that's kind of relevant in the education space, teacher deleting messages that a student posts if they're inappropriate, but that is now a generally available feature within the rest of the SKUs as well. I mentioned earlier that we had this top-level switch for turning on and off teams at the tenant level for all users of a particular type, essentially for all users. And I said that that at some point will go away because it's not really our preferred way. It's kind of a courtesy adoption capability we provided. The right way to do that is through licensing. The team's license is assigned by default with all the SKUs, all the plans that Thomas mentioned. You can then go in, depending on the number of users in your tenant, of course, and configure it through the UI, or you can use the traditional PowerShell method of configuring licenses. Okay, I want to go a little deeper into a feature we released just a few weeks ago called Guest Access and talk about how you can turn that on and what the different configuration options are for that. So Guest Access is very focused on allowing an external business guest to join and participate in a team within Microsoft Teams. It's not really analogous to Skype for Business style federation. It's also not really analogous to anonymous join for a meeting. Those are kind of different parts of that spectrum and different capabilities that we're working on. But specifically right now, I'm talking about guest access in a team. It's based on, currently, the guest has to have an Azure AD account, so they have to be one of the 980 million people in Azure AD. Relatively soon, we will be extending support to all MSA users, so anybody with a Hotmail, a Skype, an Xbox, et cetera account, and also anybody can create one of those. As the Azure AD stack adds additional identity providers, we will either automatically or relatively easily end up supporting those as well. There's a block and allow list that's currently in preview that lets you choose which tenants you want to allow or disallow from being in your guest access relationship. And guest access is disabled by default right now. What that means is when you go into the user type for guest, that switch is turned off. So that will disallow the inviting of guests. It will disallow guests to log in. It doesn't change anything at the AAD level. Guests can still be added for other workloads within Office 365 or within Azure AD, but it does directly impact whether or not they can be added to and sign into Teams. And then there's, you can see here within the Admin Center, if I want to control settings on whether or not guests can be added, in addition to, for example, maybe I want to add a number of guests, but I don't want to have the ability for Teams to support it, or I want to configure the ability to add, I want to add some guests and then I want to turn it off to adding future guests. There's some additional settings around adding guest users and allowing them to be members of groups in the groups control panel that you can configure here. We have a detailed article, I think it's like 15 screens long, about how to configure guest access on the Microsoft documentation site that has a lot more information about this. And then there's also a general policy around whether or not people outside the company can access. There's a few different ways that you can control and configure guest access across, depending if you're scoping to the entire set of services, scoping to anything related to groups, or scoping just to what's going on within Teams. And here in AAD, you can also configure guest permissions. It's a little confusing. I recognize that we have a few different ways to configure this. It's really trying to provide, as far upstream as you want to go, all the way up to the directory, the ability to control who can come into the tenant and do certain things there. Okay, we're going to switch now and talk about some of the other Office 365 settings. I alluded to some of them earlier. We'll show you a little bit of that. Some of it's just PowerShell, but we'll have URLs for that help you configure how to set group access and a few other things within O365. So I mentioned earlier, you can control who can create a group by, which is a team, by creating a security group. There's a PowerShell that you can run. It's pretty straightforward. We're not going to put it in the slide here, but there's an easy URL you can go to learn more about that. I would say a good fraction of the customers who are deploying teams at scale use that capability and use it for some portion of their company. So it may not be only IT, but it often is not the entire company has the privilege of creating a team. There's a new feature now called group expiration, and you can set group expiration policies any number of days, 6 months, a year, whatever. Teams is based on groups, so an expiration for a group means the team expires as well. The expiration notifications are sent a few days in advance at different intervals. The notifications right now come through emails. We are working on a feature in Teams, so the team expiration notification will actually show up in Teams, and the owner of the team can renew within Teams, so they don't have to go to email. Just one more reason to keep people out of email. The deleted teams can be recovered. They're really just soft deleted, and whether it's through expiration or manual delete, they can be recovered for up to 30 days. Another really cool thing that we're actually, it's in private preview right now, is group naming policies. You can have prefixes and suffixes and a forbidden word list as well. So there's a URL there pointing to what the PowerShell is. You can see in the template there how they provided, based on some directory attributes, a naming convention for the group. So they want to have the group, the department name, and the country embedded in the title. That goes into the display name of the team, which is kind of cool. And then they can also have a stop word list, so they don't want to have anybody creating a team called HR. Kind of makes sense. And you can see in the Teams UI there, if somebody tries to create a team with that name, they're blocked from doing so, and they're told to pick a new name. If there's a naming convention like a prefix, as they type their name in, it'll then show them what the prefixed or suffixed name looks like after they've entered their team name. Another feature we have that is outside of the direct UI or admin control for Teams, but really impacts Teams and is a great benefit to our enterprise customers, is around data classification policies. So this is where you have maybe secret information or high business impact information or public shareable information or NDA information, and you create a number of different classification policies. There's a URL there where you can go and learn how to do those through PowerShell. What that means then is those classification policies are available when a team owner is creating a team. They have to choose a policy. And then once the people come in and are using Teams, the header for that team and even every channel in the team prominently displays the classification policy. So everybody knows the policy within which they are operating. We are also working on support for a capability called default policies. So you can just have a smart default that people always get. Okay, so that was a quick whirlwind tour through the admin configuration settings, both in Teams and in Office 365, AAD, and some stuff in PowerShell. I wanted to spend just a second before we switch to talk about clients, to talk about some recommendations we have. And this is just 3 sample recommendations across a spectrum of how conservative to more conservative to less conservative, less open to more open, depending on what words you want to use. I'm not trying to be pejorative. It's just different points on the spectrum of the degree of control you want to have. So if we look at a few different dimensions there, for example, team creation, you could let everybody create a team and a group. You could let a subset of people. At Microsoft, it's full-time employees only. Or you can make it an IT staff or limited help desk function. The fun features. Generally, those are enabled. Certain companies, maybe not appropriate, so they're turned off. Or I do recommend actually the Giphy setting being set to moderate, and that's the default in the admin center as well. And some companies will just disable this. The bots and apps, I love having those enabled and encouraging side loading. So if there's development teams that have some process and they want to just bring an app in to streamline that, add a bot in before it gets to our store, maybe they're working on a bot, side loading is a great way to do that, or you may want to restrict that further. Guest access, generally prefer to have that open. I know there are concerns around controlling, for example, an allow-deny list of different tenants, and so there's, of course, different points along that spectrum. And then messaging, I actually, in my own tenants, I like to turn off the owner can delete messages because I actually don't like, I like a record of what I did and did not do, and it's a little weird when the team owner deletes a message. But there's a full spectrum of options to choose. These are just a few of them. You can go through the slides we just went through and see if, whatever suits your particular need. Okay, so we're going to talk about clients now. Just a quick tour of how the clients, where you get the clients from and some of the policies we have around those. So the web client, this is actually really great. It's a Microsoft communications product with a full-featured web client, almost analogous to the desktop and mobile apps in every way. You go to teams.microsoft.com, you sign in with your Azure AD account, soon with your MSA account if you're a guest on a team. Supports Edge, Chrome, and Firefox, IE 11. And of course, it does encourage you to install the desktop app and the mobile app. You'll have a more performant experience, you get better notifications integrated into the OS, that kind of thing, if you install the apps. There's desktop apps. We mentioned the mobile apps as well. One thing also is we're working on a Windows Store app. Right now, the app is a downloadable installer. We're going to get a Store app up there so it can be deployed from the App Store, and then we'll work over time on other ways to better automate the deployment of the desktop client. The client itself auto-updates, so there's the shell of the client will update periodically, and then the logic inside the client, essentially the web app that is running Teams, will periodically refresh itself as well. And we tend to do that, we try very hard to do that during idle time, so the user may come in and see a little notification that you have the latest client, but there's no interruption of the normal course of work. On the mobile side, we use Intune-based MAM on iOS and Android. It does require AAD Premium. You can enforce conditional access via Intune as well, and the policies cover pin access and cut, copy, paste, and things like that. And we'll continue to invest in this area, including MDM over time. I mentioned that the clients update as often as as often as once a week, and during inactive hours. The release notes are always available in the Help tab. You can go find those there, or there's also a online documentation source where you can read about those as well. The release notes tend to get updated with the client roughly once a week, sometimes every 2 weeks. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit now about settings on a per team basis. I mentioned earlier that you can set some things across the whole tenant, and those could apply to every team in the tenant. But then the team owner has the ability to choose some things within that team that they want to control or lock down or unlock, depending on how they want to manage that. So we're not going to go into these in great detail, but I'll just kind of page through them and show you how to get to them. So you get to it by going to View Team. You just go to the ... next to Team, go to View Team. When you come in, you can do things like change the picture. You can decide whether or not regular members, not owners, but regular members can do things like create a channel, delete a channel, add or remove apps, add or remove tabs, delete all the messages, delete their own messages. And you can also control what happens in the general channel. General is the default channel in every team. Some teams, that's their main discussion channel. Other teams, it's a pretty heavily policed, announcements only, important information only, because everybody has that pinned and everybody's following that. And so you can control that you can choose if anybody can post a message, or if they post a message but they do get a notification that X hundred people are going to see that message, or you can even restrict it so that only team owners can post a message. Guest settings, I mentioned guest earlier. You can choose some of the capabilities that guests have within a team, where you can tune those, whether or not they can create channels, whether or not they can delete channels. Definitely recommend actually keeping both of these off for guests. There's, in most cases, there may be a case where you actually have a guest who's kind of running the team on behalf of the owner, but in most cases, these are probably better set to off. And then last, around @mentions on this screen. @mentions is a way to reach out and notify somebody. You do @ their name, sends a little notification to them so they know that you're trying to ping them. It's kind of the Teams chat equivalent of putting somebody's name on the to-line of an email. There's a couple of interesting ways to @mention groups of people within Teams. You can @mention everybody on the team just by typing @team, or you can @mention everybody who has favorited a channel by using @channel. These are controversial features. Some team owners really like them. Some team owners like them and abuse them, and some team owners dislike them and turn them off. So it's there for the team owner to decide exactly how they want to manage that. And then last, under Teams, I talked earlier about stickers and Giphies and all that, and how you can set some restrictions at the tenant level. Then within the boundaries set at the tenant level, an individual team owner can decide if they want to have a different Giphy setting, or if they want to enable or disable stickers and memes within their team.
And I think one interesting thing about these settings within the channel are, well, if you as a company allow all your users to create teams, then this is not so relevant for you as an IT pro because people just create teams and do their own settings. Of course, you want to educate them about it. However, if you decide that only specific users should be able to create teams, then you might want to look into these as well and say, well, if I have only my IT admins creating teams or help desk, what do I want the experience to be within the individual teams? And that's why you want, as an administrator, look at these settings.
Absolutely. Everything we've shown you so far, most of what we've shown you so far is in a UI. We are working on a set of commandlets to cover the full spectrum of teams and channel provisioning and creation and configuration, which will, especially for a IT-led function, really enable the automation and streamlining of cloning teams, creating teams according to a template, or just creating teams in bulk. Okay.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about network planning. And obviously, network is not a setting for team. However, it would very, very heavily impact the experience that users will have, especially when it comes to real-time traffic. And I've here these two diagrams. On the left, you can see what users usually do in Teams. So we have all this richness about collaboration, discussions, file sharing, file upload. And all of that is not real-time traffic. Real-time traffic is just only when I have a meeting within Teams, so I do an audio call, audio conference, video conference, or desktop sharing. So users will spend most of the time probably not doing real-time communication. However, if they do, it's super important that they have a great experience. And from a planning perspective, if you need to plan for Teams, this is where you will spend most of your time, most likely. Because you want to get sure that the network just gives the right performance and is designed the right way so that users can have a great experience. And one interesting thing about Teams, well, if you have experience on Skype for Business, it's actually the same behavior as Skype for Business. But if you have not, one of the interesting things is that the traffic pattern that Teams has is a little bit different from other Office 365 products. If you think about SharePoint or Exchange, it's very much that you have somewhere a client and you have somewhere a server or service, and the client just sends everything to this service. So I send an email, goes to Exchange Online. I upload a file, goes to SharePoint. So it's very much everything in one direction. However, if we have real-time communication, well, if I'm going to call Dan, I don't want to send it to our service first, because maybe Dan is in the same network as I am. So maybe he's just sitting in a different building, but I could reach him with a peer-to-peer connection. So why should I send to a remote data center all the traffic? So my client will, for one-to-one conversations, always try to send this traffic directly. So my audio will go directly, my video will go directly, my desktop sharing will. So you need to understand that when you plan for networking, that you will see this kind of traffic as well, that there will be traffic that will be just kept within your company, if it's possible. Well, if it's not, if there's a firewall between me and Dan, or if Dan is staying at the hotel and the hotel doesn't allow this kind of direct connection, we can still send it to the cloud and relay the traffic there. So we support that. But however, now the network path is a little bit longer because it needs to go first to the cloud service that does the relay. It might be also over a network that I can't control as much because now it needs to go over the internet for some part. So I really want to keep it as local as possible. And that's true for one-to-one conversations. If you're in a meeting with multiple people, we will always send it to the cloud because on the cloud there's some conferencing service that will mix the audio, that will collect the video and send it out again. So this doesn't apply to meetings, but it does to one-to-one communication. Also very important to understand, and this is also different from other workloads, for real-time communication, we prefer UDP over TCP. TCP is great because if a packet doesn't arrive, then we will just resend it. There are some mechanism that allows us to get sure that all the packets arrive. Well, if I'm sending audio to Dan, I'm not really, well, if we lose a packet, I'm not really interested in waiting to resend it. It's called real-time communication for a reason. The packet needs to arrive as soon as possible. And if we lose one, it's lost. Doesn't matter. It's about 20 milliseconds of audio, and we can recover that from our intelligence stack. So UDP will really very positively impact the quality. And if you don't allow it, then users might not have as great experience. If you want to learn more about the network path that I just explained on how my client finds out how my media can go directly to Dan, I will be doing tomorrow a session called Understanding Media Flows in Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business, and I would be happy to see you there so that we can go into more detail on that topic. From the network requirements, we do have a list on our Office documentation that has a number of IP addresses, FQDNs, and lists all the ports that you need to open. It's super important that you go to that list, that you open all the required ports, that you open all the required IPs, the FQDNs, and it's super important that you monitor that list well. There's an RSS feed that helps you to monitor that. But we do updates from time to time. And obviously, if we add new IPs or new FQDNs, and you don't update your environment, you might run into problems and not all of the features might be working as expected. Again, also open the UDP ports. It will impact your quality a lot. Next point is, allow local internet breakout, if possible. I know it's not easy for most companies, just if they have a network where they use an MPLS, collect from the whole continent, all the traffic in one location, send it then to the internet. Not easy to change that, but it's worth trying to and worth making the long-term attempt to do that. Why? We want to send the traffic as quickly as possible to Office 365, to our network, and if you route it internally, well, you will just add more delay, you will have more traffic in your internal network, and it will not benefit your quality. There was yesterday a session, demystifying internet connectivity to Skype for Business Online and Microsoft Teams. If you want to learn more on how to optimize your connectivity to Office 365, I would highly recommend to catch that recording. Also, avoid any proxy servers. Most companies, or a lot of companies, have proxy servers. Get sure that all the real-time media traffic, that the UDP, that it can bypass the proxy server, that you don't add any delay, or that it doesn't start dropping your UDP packets. And then plan for network connectivity, plan for the right bandwidth, and plan for the right quality. And there will be, on Friday, a session, real-time communications with Network Planner. So we have a new tool. It's an online tool. You go there, you can configure your sites, how many users you have, and then it will tell you how much bandwidth you should plan for. Okay, let's bring it all together, summary and resources. So what we want you to take away, and Dan mentioned all of that in the beginning, Teams is really easy. You should start today. Just go there, create your first, sign in, go to teams.microsoft.com. It's very likely that it's enabled if you have an Office 365 tenant. Just start your first team, invite your colleagues, and test it yourself and see what the experience is. For the full experience, it requires you to have Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business. It will work without those, but you won't have the best user experience. Look at all these settings, find out what matches best your business requirements, and then configure Teams the way you need it for your users. And very important, the network needs to be optimized for real-time communications. So the call to action, again, start using Teams. However, don't forget to drive adoption. It's great if you're excited about it, if you start it, but your end users, they need to learn and understand what is the value. Why should they use Teams? What's the benefit? How does it make their life easier? And then did a session yesterday, drive successful adoption of Microsoft Teams. So look at that so that you can plan ahead how you do your change management and get your users excited. So a couple of sessions, we mentioned probably all of them during that session. These sessions are still coming up. I'm not going to read them to you, but you can find them here, and these sessions are still today, tomorrow, or on Friday. Just give you a second to take your pictures. Okay. And then there's a couple of sessions that are already done, but go there, catch the recordings so that you can watch them. A few more resources. aka.ms/successwithteams is practical guidance that will help you to enable teams, to plan for teams, to understand all the scenarios, to dig deeper. So I would highly recommend to go there. You find also readiness that will help you to understand the different features. And then there's Fast Track, which is our engine to enable customers to leverage Office 365 products. Very important for us. Please do your evaluation. We want to hear from you if you liked the session and see your feedback. And with that, I would like to thank you very much. Thank you. So Dan and I will hang here around, or maybe in front of the room if you have any questions. I will also be at the booth today from 12 till 4. So if you want to know anything else, please come and find us.